So here's another technique that Jason used to employ quite a bit. In his bluesy phrasing, what he would do are double stops. Sometimes these are referred to as dyads, but for all practical terms, we're going to refer to them as double stops. So what they are, well, two notes, but we're going to stick with inside this pentatonic framework. Okay, so we're going to vibrato them. In fact, we can do this with all these things. And then, this is the cool part. From these double stops, what we can do is we can bend some of these notes. So like this. Now I'm going to bend the G string on this shape. All right. You can even do kind of a triple stop. These notes. And then bend this note. Sounds kind of like a country lick. Now, here is another blues lick that Jason used to do. So Jason used to bend up to these notes, and then play the next two. So very, very traditional kind of early blues, classic rock. Okay, so let's take a look at this lick, this next lick. Sounds like a very 70s lick. And Jason used to do it a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this note, bend it up, play the next two, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick and then pull off. So you can change the fingers too. So that's a really cool one that he does a lot. All right, so here's another interesting little blues thing that Jason does. What he'll do is he'll take a pentatonic scale. Let's do this in D. And what he does is he'll bend a note, and then he'll come down, and then he'll go back up. So now that doesn't really sound very much, but what he's going to do is he's going to change around that top note. Sounds kind of weird, but that's what he does. Get that blues. You can play around with it. Well, that kind of sucked. So one of the things that, since this is a video about some of the things that Jason Becker did, not only was it stuff that Jason created, but it's also some of the material that Jason ended up playing. So when Jason was in the band with Marty Friedman, he got a lot of very good things from Marty Friedman. And one of the interesting things that he got from Marty Friedman was he would take a note which was slightly out of scale, and he would bend up to that note. So he would bend up to the target note, like this. Let's say this is the target note. What I would do is I would grab a note below it, which is out of this pentatonic scale. So this note, and I would bend up to the right note. So I can say, okay. there's lots of cool applications of this. Generally what you want to do is know your target note that you're bending from and bending to. The emphasis being the old way of bending, the non-Marty way of bending is taking a note which is in the scale, which is totally cool, and then bending it to another note which is in the scale. The Marty way of doing it is you're playing in the scale, and then what you do is you take a note that's outside of the scale, and then you bend it into the note that's in the scale. A really interesting technique is these type of rakes. A lot of times terminology will get confused, meaning some kind of sweep, but in this case it just means a mute, and I'm crossing the strings to a target note. So I'm going to shoot for this note right here, and I will rake to this note. So you can hear this beforehand, and then I'll hit the note. I'll take this note, and I will rake to that note. It's a small dynamic, but in the end, it makes a big difference. So let's take a look at some more of these raking ideas. So I'm going to rake to this note. You'll notice I'm vibratoing it. Next is I'm going to rake and bend that note. One more time. Next I'm going to rake, bend, and then vibrato. Again. Or you can ghost bend. So you can rake to the ghost bend.